I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're speaking with author Christopher Michael Benoit. He is rooted in upstate New York with vast experiences spanning journalism to corporate publishing. And he has unveiled a terrific new book. It is called Silence of the Lamb. This novel unfurls a cautionary future born from humanity's neglect through the perspectives of the Hurley family across generations. It holds a mirror to our choices and kindles hope for redemption, infused with influences from literary icon Stephen King. The author's narrative invites contemplation about the dualities of human nature and our relationship with the world. We are delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel. Chris, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you. I appreciate the time and appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about my novel. So,
My pleasure. This is such an original work. I know you're inspired a little bit by Stephen King, but this is definitely a Christopher Benoit novel. It's all your own. Tell us how you came up with the idea, the premise, and give the folks the big picture of what the book is about.
it is about kind of a really a tale of a contemporary world right we got right now. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, and there's certainly a lot of challenges, as we all know, as we all went through the COVID situation, and just really a lot of different changes in this world. I mean, it's kind of at a point where we're not quite sure where things are going to go, and my really inspiration for this was I've always been fascinated by the possibility of you want to say apocalypse or whatever,
Mhm.
however you want to term it. But even though I was a fan of The Walking Dead, I love, great show and great writing, great actors and so forth. I honestly don't believe we're gonna have to worry about zombies running around. So my point of view was to kind of set the stage for a situation where the apocalypse did happen for a number of different reasons, and I base those reasons on reality that's going on right now in our world. There's a lot of uncertainty. The atomic clock right now,
Yeah.
is set at 90 seconds to midnight, which has never been that high, and that's something, an indication by a lot of renowned people that this there's chances for some crazy things to happen. We all know what the situation in the Ukraine and Putin and a lot of bad people out there that have access to things that could unfortunately end humanity as we know it. So I wrote from that perspective. As I mentioned, I'm a big fan of Stephen King. My novel is based where I live, what I know. I've been in New England most of my life, all my life, really, for the
Mhm.
most part. And my story takes place over a series of really 70 plus years, looking at three different generations after the fall of our country and of the world in general. And it really, I try to at the same time, looking obviously at the demise of humanity, try to set the stage for hopefully learning from our mistakes in the past and rebuilding something that is better, based on just really on respect for our fellow man and our respect for our environment and respect for everything that we've been given in this world, as far as an amazing planet, an amazing ability to do things that just were, unheard of years and 100 years ago. Who would have thought, we're get on an airplane and fly, around the world and so forth. And I kind of, was hoping when I wrote this that, it would set the stage for some hope for the future. And right now, I'll be honest. I mean, I'm nervous about the
Yeah.
future. I have a 25-year-old son who's in the process of becoming a police officer. I've actually just he just got married a couple of years ago. I have a grandson, just
Yeah.
literally 2 weeks old. And you worry about what they're going to face. You watch the news every day, and it gets kind of scary. So that's kind of where I wrote from, and I did do it over, like, looking at three different generations of family from when the end starts, how they kind of survive that, and end up in a location actually in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I picked that because it's my I literally just got back. I was out there for 2 weeks. Just got back Saturday. Very familiar with the area. I thought it made a lot of sense if you were going somewhere to try to kind of restart things,
Right.
and have the opportunity to survive. So I picked that area, and um, went and looked at the three different, three generations of this family, and hopefully presented a message of hope at the same time, maybe having some fun with it in the sense of the way Stephen King does. He writes everything. I've read everything he's ever written,
Mhm.
and one of my favorite novels is The Stand. And The Stand is kind of looks at a similar type situation. And again, it's always intrigued me to wonder what would happen if we were suddenly all gone for the most part, and how would things evolve? And I do look at that very deeply, because a big part of this story is the main characters, Jack and Adam, going on a really an ex, going on a mission to see what has transpired after 50 years in New England, with basically nobody, for the most part, around, other than some small groups of different individuals, or different, pockets of society. It brings us through New York City, and brings us through my favorite city in the world, Boston,
Mhm.
Massachusetts, and everything in between there. And they meet a lot of interesting people, and they meet some great people, and they meet some people that unfortunately would probably like to have things the way they used to be. And the people that might have kind of had the were the reason why we've kind of gotten into the trouble that we ended up in this situation. So
Yeah.
that's where the story kind of evolved from. So
It's a great story. A couple of things come to mind. One, finally, we don't have to worry about traffic on the Bourne Bridge going out to Cape Cod if you're
no.
escaping an apocalypse. The other thing is the world you describe absolutely reminds me of the Charlton Heston movies from the 1970s, whether it's Omega Man or Soylent Green or any of those, where you've got this post-apocalyptic world and a hero trying to make sense of it all. And, in the case of Planet of the Apes, starting over again with an Eve as he rides off on his horse once he sees all of humanity has been blown away. So let me talk to you about movie making. Have you thought about this as a picture, perhaps?
I certainly have a lot of my friends that have read the book, and actually some people that are not really friends have told me that it probably would make a good story, in the sense of kind of in that same kind of mode as you mentioned. Charlton Heston, I remember seeing the Omega Man when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and I've seen it, and I've read actually Richard Matheson, who wrote the original story.
Hmm.
And it's funny, that movie was actually made, I think, with Vincent Price back in the 50s, and then Charlton Heston remade it, and then of course we had the I Am Legend, which is with Will
Oh,
Smith, which was a remake of that Matheson novel. And that definitely was an inspiration. There's no doubt. I mentioned The Stand with Stephen King, and I think Mr. King did such an amazing job with that story, with kind of presenting good versus evil. I mean, and anybody that's read that book, you have those two characters, and I definitely have that influence in mine as well, with some of the characters definitely being more on the I guess, lack for a better term, evil side,
yeah.
or and then other people, including our main family, the main characters, Jack, Hurley, really wanting to plant some seeds for hope that things, we can rebuild this, and hopefully at some point we're going to rebuild it in a much better place. And with that, by not looking at people based on race and based on their color, their skin, and all that garbage. I never understood that. How I put that into part of a big part of that book. My book is the Pact, which is kind of lays out a little outline of what this emerging society in Cape Cod is all about, and part of that is not judging people, just judge really taking people on by who they are. We all bleed blood, red blood, no matter what. And I think we get so caught up in all that stuff, and and it's always bothered me. That's something
Right.
that's always affected my life. I was raised to not look at people based on prejudgments, and I've always done that, and my son has done it, and my that's just the way we are. And I was hopeful in this story that that would come across, that we're all human beings, period, and it's that simple. And we certainly make a lot of mistakes, and we do tend to not learn from history. And that's worries me right now. I mean, we've fought 2 world wars in the last 100 years, and you keep hearing this term thrown around, World War III. I mean,
It's just like,
it's
wow.
kind of like casual, like the way people talk, and God forbid that happens, because World War III will. I don't even want to think about it, because it will be bad for every human being on this planet if that happens, and I hopefully it does not, you really hope it doesn't, but um, but getting back to what the story itself. I mean, those novels always presented the good and versus evil, and you have the main character certainly trying to hope make things better and try to do whatever they could in their limited capacity. And my main character, definitely Jack, is certainly does that, and the Hurley family has tried to tries to do that right from the beginning when this whole thing happens. And again, I look at it through 3 generations of this family, and I wanted to do that just to focus on one particular family, how something like this would affect them, and how it might affect them going into 50 years in the future, or what might happen. So
I know you have experience as a journalist, but was this the first time you've written anything long form?
yeah, I mean, I've always written I always enjoyed it in college, and I always have written. I just as I find it kind of therapeutic. I enjoy it. I love writing stories.
Mhm.
But this is the first time I've attempted to do something in a novel. I mean, granted, it's a
Mhm.
short novel, but it is a novel. And I really, it's just fun for me.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. It's something I really enjoy, putting some words down and creating stories and stuff. And um, yeah, and I will continue. I'm working on a sequel to this right now. So
Mhm.
excuse me.
Right. Well, it's awesome. It's an amazing book. I think you have really touched upon a lot of the problems in the world. We do live in an age where it seems like, for the first time, I think, in my lifetime, you can always almost imagine humanity being, severely injured, harmed, killed, whatever word you want to use, from a nuclear war. I mean, we're basically at war right now with Russia, whether people want to
Yeah, it's
admit
a
it or
proxy
not.
war.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we're using the Ukrainians as pawns and we're fighting Russia. So whoever thought we'd be in a war with Russia in 2023, particularly when the idea of Russia being a threat was mocked by one of our former presidents. But apparently, Russia is a threat. Who knows? It's hard to decipher truth. Let me ask you one question about journalism before we go today. You have been a journalist. What's your take on journalism in 2023?
Honestly, that and I do get into that in the book here. I feel it's lost some. I mean, you have your very clear camps. I mean, you have your, I guess, for I know you can say MSNBC is, it's
Yeah,
clear where they might stand.
right.
Fox
Fox on
News
the right. Yep.
is yeah, and I grew up the days we would watch Tom Brokaw and Walter
Hmm.
Cronkite, and those it, the in journalism was, definitely different. I think when I worked in it, I honestly try to get both sides. And you
Right,
always have your viewpoints. I mean,
right.
we feel one way or the other. I mean, but I always learned when I went to. I mean, I graduated from college in 1990. I'm going back a while, but when I took journalism classes in school, I were taught, you're supposed to present the story unbiased. And I don't feel that's the case. I mean, I always learned. I remember a news director I worked for in Albany here. He told me, you know, it was you always had to have, make sure you're telling the story itself and it's factual and you have your sources and everything is done the correct way. And literally at times you'll hear stories almost based on rumor
Right.
or innuendo, and we certainly there's tons of examples of that out there.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad because I think it's such a huge part of our country, and it was part of the founding fathers. I mean,
Yeah.
freedom of the press. And it's
Right.
such a valuable thing. I don't know if we realize how important that is.
Sure.
And right now, I just don't know if we're really getting that. I mean, you're getting, yeah, like I said, I mean, you have your MSNBC
Yeah.
and your Fox News, and they're obviously very biased. I mean,
Yeah. You've
you
got your
watch it
right,
for
you got
5 minutes,
your left. The only
pretty
victim is the
much.
truth. Yeah. The only victim is the
Yeah,
truth.
yeah, and that bothers me. I mean, I think that's just part of the whole. I kind of lay that out in my book about kind of the crumbling of our society. I mean,
Yeah.
and the morals that are just kind of out the door now, and anything goes. I mean, you watch TV, and I'm no prude by no means.
I
I
know. It's
certainly,
crazy. I
but
can't
you
believe the
watch some of the stuff.
commercials. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
I can't
it's
believe the
just
commercials. Well, they say truth is always the first casualty. So that seems to be the case in our society, as well as the society that you have created in this astonishing book. It is called Silence of the Land. It tells the story of an apocalyptic world through the eyes of the Hurley family, and of course, the hero, Jack Hurley. It's an amazing read. You'll be riveted by it. You'll be frightened by it. Hopefully, it will also give you a little hope as well. We're delighted to have Christopher Michael Benoit join us here today on Spotlight. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
thank you. I again appreciate the time, and yeah, I really hope to get the word out there, and I'd love some people to read it and as much as
Absolutely.
possible, and hopefully get something out of it. I did this from the heart, and you know, I hope some people enjoy it.
Absolutely. I think they absolutely will enjoy it. The links are underneath this interview as well for the folks at home. They can click there. And for the viewers at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.